For so long, Arsenal have been desperate to sign a striker. They've chased them, they've scouted them, they have yearned for them. And yet in 2025, it feels like the script has been totally flipped because now they're willing to pay to move to us. This is today's Arsenal Transfer Show. Hello and welcome to the Gooner Talk, back again with you guys and girls for another episode of what is the Arsenal Transfer Show. Joining you every single morning at 8 a.m. UK time. Thank you so much as always for joining me and making this a part of your morning routines. It is greatly appreciated. I hope you're doing good. I hope you're doing well. I hope your weekend was as good as can be expected from a weekend of still no football, really. I mean, Club World Cup doesn't count, does it? But certainly we are heading in that direction. In fact, today is the first day where the players are due back this week. It might not be today, but certainly this week, commencing Monday, July 7th, the Arsenal players are expected back for pre-season training. So that is, without a doubt, a step, a moment, a period of this campaign to be excited about. James says, is the internet sorted? No, is the answer. I know that I'm coming through good and well right now, but the reality is that we're living in a period where anything could go at any moment. I hope not. I hope it stays fine. I hope we continue without issues, but I can't promise it at the moment. But I did have a good sit down and I did sit down and have a chat about how we need to get this kind of plumbed in. I know the hotspot worked fine. The hotspot was great, but I've only got so much data right now. I can't use up all my data doing an 8 a.m. show. And I know the on-air sign isn't on. I know. I need to get it plugged in as well. Turns out there's actually a plug socket. It's not just battery powered, so I can get it plugged in as well. So there's still things that can be fixed. It's all a work in progress. We're doing pretty well without it. But don't worry, things will be fixed, of course, as well. Good morning to all of you joining us in the chat box. Really appreciate all of you being here. Thank you so much for listening. Good morning to Spearmint and Martin and Maximius. We've got Paul. We've got Beans on Toast and Kiki and Lars. We've got Mike. We've got Visionary FC. We've got Colin. We've got Andy. Beans on Toast. Love to you all. Thank you so much, as always, for tuning in. Greatly appreciate you all being here. It is indeed fantastic to have so many of you. Speaking of which, thank you to everybody that watched yesterday evening show. I was joined by Sophie from the Highbury squad to react to the news surrounding Viktor Gyokeres and talk a little bit more about other transfer news surrounding that story. It was a very well-watched show. In fact, I think it's probably one of the shows where we've had the most people watching at the same time on the show, which was great. And there's already 1,000 of you listening in right now, and I imagine that's going to continue to grow as well, as we have had so much fun on the shows over this summer. And it really did make me look a little silly to worry at all about going on holiday, didn't it? I was sitting there going, I don't know if they're going to be back. I don't know if they're going to come back. After I was like, why would they? They probably found somebody new to enjoy. And maybe you have. Maybe it did give you a chance to discover some extra content creators. But I was so paranoid. But all of that was utterly and entirely facetious, because you're all here and you're all back, and it all is so good to see you all here. So thank you for listening. Do drop a like on the video. We try and reach 1,000 likes. I'll be very honest with you, and I don't know whether or not the challenge is already over. I don't think it is, because yesterday's show, of course, in the morning, is only on 941 likes. Okay, but we did a show in the evening that's got over 1,000. So 1K every day was achieved on our evening show, which is not usually the case. But of course, the show before that, the morning show, ended on 941. So if you want to go back and like yesterday morning show to get us over 1,000 likes, that'd be great. But until then, technically, the challenge is kind of still in the balance a little bit. So, Right, anyway, we've been going for 4 minutes and 30 seconds. I'll give a shout out to a commenter from yesterday. Me and Sophie did quite a long intro to yesterday's show as well. And I was left a very passive-aggressive comment from Black Warrior for Life, who just put the time in which we actually start talking about football. No comment, just 5 minutes 30. That was it. I kind of respect it. I respect the passive-aggressive nature of that. Get on with it, basically, is what is being said. But we will get on with it. 4 minutes and 53, if you want to know, for today's. timestamp. Arsenal announced the signing of Martin Zubimendi from Real Sociedad. It has been a long time coming, this deal. We have been waiting in the wings for this deal to be announced, and finally it has been. And I have to say that I've been waiting for the announcement video, and you know that I have a thing for Arsenal transfer announcement videos. I long for them. I live for them. I absolutely just crave a good transfer announcement video. And Arsenal delivered yesterday. Excellent work on their timeline, of course. The drums, the noise, the words, the symphony, if you like. All of it was just great. And shout out to Ezra Collective's Femi Calioso, who, of course, was involved in the creation of that video with his music. So, brilliant stuff. Of course, Martin Zubimendi, speaking upon his arrival, said, "This is a huge moment in my career. It's the move I was always looking for and the one I wanted to make. As soon as you set foot here, you realize how big this club and this team are. I set my sights on Arsenal because their style of play is a good fit for me. They have shown their potential recently, and the best is yet to come." Of course, we hope he is right. And you can hear more from Martin Zubimendi on the club's official website with a full interview with the player that's 6 minutes long. He even speaks a bit of English at the end, which is great as well. And Andrea Berta said, "We are so happy to bring Martin and Arsenal to Arsenal and have a lot of pride in finalising this transfer. Martin was a key target for us, and we all know that he is a perfect fit for our squad and with the high quality he has. We welcome Martin and his family to the club, and we look forward to him settling in with his teammates and are very excited to see him playing in an Arsenal shirt." Mikel Arteta said, "Martin is a player who will bring a huge amount of quality and football intelligence to our team. He will fit in really well, and he has all the attributes to be a key player for us. The standard he has consistently performed at over the last few seasons for both club and country is exactly why we are so excited to have him with us. We all welcome Martin and his family to the club." And he will wear the number 36 shirt, as Charles Watts did indeed report. Fantastic work by our good friend Wiles Chats. We have to appreciate Wiles and his work. It's always good to see him thriving in this journalistic world. But yes, of course, the story of this transfer is quite long and storied. You will very well know that I reported in June that even despite this transfer being pretty much all but, if not done, in March time, of course, it was set to be done really, from January. There was a high level of confidence this would be happening. In March, it was pretty much wrapped up. But in June, Real Madrid did indeed register their interest in the player. Certainly they are denying that they have, but it is very well appreciated that Real Madrid did indeed register their interest in the player in June. But it was too late, and Arsenal had already got their man through the door, and all the relevant pieces of paperwork were indeed done. So, yeah, this was a great story, a great moment, a great kind of run of a story that, in the end, I think gave us a bit of fatigue, and certainly we were waiting a long time. This is a massive deal for Arsenal. Please don't let the amount of time that it has taken for this deal to be announced to in any way make you feel as though that this was and isn't a big deal. It is a massive marquee transfer. For me, Zubimendi is the best number 6 on the market we could have signed, has been playing at a world-class level in Spain and for the national team. For me, he is the player to take the midfield to that next step, and I cannot wait to see what he achieves with this club. And of course, we've got Christian Norgard, we hope to be announced soon as well. He also will be taking things forwards also with Arsenal, which is great. It seems the media team with the transfers are going to be pretty busy this summer. But it could be a player leaving that features next heavily on the list. According to Turkish media and Turkish newspapers, Fenerbahce are working on a deal to sign Leandro Trossard. So this is quite a significant story. Reason why this is such a significant story is because, of course, this is the swell of wingers, ins and outs, and what's going to happen, and why are we signing X player, and can we sign somebody else, and will we get money through the door for certain players? Well, Leandro Trossard is potentially on his way out of Arsenal. Fenerbahce are looking at trying to sign the Belgian. Apparently, according to those Turkish sources, he has agreed, or rather his kind of financial desires have been met, and that is not a problem on that front, and that they will look to add Trossard to their ranks for this forthcoming season. They will have to agree a deal with Arsenal. The price tag, there had been some suggestions that a bid of 15 million had been sent in. I imagine that will get turned down. I think Arsenal should be looking for at least 20 when it comes to Trossard. You have to remember that this guy, he signed for Arsenal in his late 20s. He's now 30 years of age. He turns 31 in December. The likelihood of Arsenal getting a really big, like 30 million plus for Trossard is unfortunately not going to happen. Especially when you're signing players from Turkey. It's unlikely that is going to happen. He's, of course, changed his agency recently as well. Yes, Alex, that is true. But the hope will be, I hope, for a 2 at least at the front of any potential sale of Trossard. That's what I would be hoping for. But upwards of 30, I'm afraid, you're not going to get that. He's in the last year of his contract. It's really well pointed out by Zarmud as well. So 30 years of age, turns 31 in December, last year of his deal. You're not going to get 30 from Turkey. It's not going to happen, I'm afraid. So you can probably put that to bed. But getting 20 plus would be great if we could get it. But even that could be a little tricky because of the amount of time that remains on his current deal. With just 1 or 2 years left on what remains, because Arsenal were, of course, in contract negotiations with the player over a potential improvement in terms. Worth remembering that they weren't looking to extend, they were only looking to improve his terms on his current deal, from what we understood. So it wouldn't have changed the length of his contract at all. Moving forwards, though, and to the Noni Madueke story. Yesterday was a weird one, wasn't it? Yesterday kind of began in this sense of frustration and angst and questioning and puzzlement and befuzzlement. Was kind of what yesterday's morning was. It gradually, the mood rose with the Martin Zubimendi signing, and around the time the Martin Zubimendi was announced, we had the Gyökeres stuff, which we'll talk about somewhat more. And then, of course, the day just kind of took off with positivity. But the day began with the Madueke questions, really, and it was questions. There's a lot of questions surrounding this deal and whether or not Arsenal pay it. Now, Sam Dean of the Telegraph did some fantastic reporting yesterday around the price tag, around from the Chelsea side of things, and I would be shocked if Arsenal paid this amount of money, but the suggestions are that Chelsea want upwards of £50 million for Noni Madueke to do a deal. Now, Fabrizio Romano then later on in the day suggested that potentially the good relationship between Arsenal and Chelsea over the deals that they have done over recent seasons could see Chelsea end up compromising on that price and coming down on that price. Now, for me, I personally don't feel that Noni Madueke is worth more than 40. And I wouldn't be going higher than 40. I'd feel much more comfortable closer to 30. But of course, the reality is that the context of wingers in the market right now is, well, that everybody seems to be paying a lot of money for wingers that I don't particularly think are worth the money that is being paid for those wingers. Gittins, £55 million. For me, I think that's way over the top. Way over the top for what Jamie Gittins is worth with respect to him. I think that Bryan Mbeumo's deal going upwards of £62 million is absolutely nuts. I think that's a crazy amount of money to pay for Bryan Mbeumo, considering the age bracket, of course, that he's in. And, of course, the lack of interest really from anybody other than Manchester United. I still think it's an absolutely mental amount of money. And then, of course, you've got Anthony Elanga at Nottingham Forest. Newcastle have had a bid of over 50 million rejected. Spurs have had a bid of £50 million rejected for Mohamed Kudus, who had a worse season last year than Madueke. So you can see why Chelsea are asking for that amount of money for Noni Madueke. You can see why they are. While I disagree with him being worth that amount of money, you can absolutely see why they're asking for that figure. But Arsenal have to try and come down on that price. Absolutely. He doesn't count as homegrown, even though he's an England international. He came through the youth ranks with PSV, of course, and played the majority of his career between the ages of 16 and 21 in the Netherlands. And I believe that means that, of course, he doesn't count as homegrown. So for that reason, this deal for me, and I'm not going to go too in depth on it because we talked a lot about it yesterday, but this for me is only a deal to do if you can do it in addition to the other signings that we have to make. If Arsenal sign Gyökeres, Eze, and Rodrigo, and then add Madueke as kind of the Trossard forward replacement, if you will, then I'm fine with it. And I think they have to try and get him for less than 50 million. But if he's coming in instead of Rodrigo, if he's coming in instead of Eze, for me, I cannot for the life of me understand why on earth we would want to do that. So that's where I'm at. I think he'd be a really good backup to Saka. I think he'd be a really solid number 2 for Saka. But this summer for me is not about that position as much as it is about upgrading centre forward, adding competition to the attacking midfield with an Eze type player, adding competition on the left-hand side and levelling up the left-hand side in particular with a Rodrigo. That's where I'm at. And for me, I just can't pay that amount. Now, I see Martin said that Harry said that he wouldn't pay over 25 and he'd be annoyed if we did. But I'm sorry, Harry, obviously we're never going to pay anything as low as that, as for the reasons I've just explained, around the market regarding these players. So that's not going to happen. But Arsenal, if they are going to sign him, hopefully can compromise on a deal and get as close to 40 as they can. But I want them to get other players. Not necessarily first, because I don't necessarily think it's possible to get other players first. But the judgment from me will come at the end of the window, seeing who we have signed. And if Madueke has come in, but we've not landed a Rodrigo or an Eze, I will be frustrated. I think he's a talented player, and I think he absolutely has potential. But I don't think that there's a reason to, compromise on those other deals before or within kind of this one. That's where I'm at on that front. And a lot of people are worried about what it means for Ethan Nwaneri. Now, according to the Telegraph, there has been progress in talks between Arsenal and Ethan Nwaneri's side of things over a renewal of his deal. Again, worth pointing out, despite the Madueke news, who is seen as a competition player for Saka, there is considered to be not a foresight of Nwaneri being a right winger. Instead, absolutely, Nwaneri is thought to be a 8 or a 10. They look at him more as a central player, not as a wide player. So it's worth considering that and thinking about that whenever having kind of a question mark about a player's future or where they might feature or where their position is going to be. Nwaneri is thought of by the club as a central player. He himself, his preference is to play through the middle, not in that wide right area. So, and he's also a really young player as well. He's only 18 years of age, turned 18 in March. So he's still a very young player as well. And that's worth pointing out. And I think we've seen some real flashes of brilliance from Nwaneri and some really exciting moments. But, I've not seen enough to suggest that we should down tools on everything else, and just to pile all of our efforts and resources into Nwaneri. But we need to make sure we keep him at this point of his career. He cannot leave. He has to stay. We have to try and get him a new deal so that we can see whether or not that next step is absolutely worthy of being at Arsenal. That's where we're kind of at in that regard. So, yeah, let's go to our headline story of the day. Of course, yesterday evening, we did a show surrounding the news that Arsenal are advancing on a deal to sign Viktor Gyokeres from Sporting in what is the deal that we have been waiting for. We have been waiting for this deal to happen, not particularly Gyökeres in particular as a player, but the centre-forward transfer is the player that we have all been waiting to see for a very, 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 very long time. And it is exciting. And it is, just even whether or not he was your preference, whether or not you want him or not, there is and should be excitement around the idea of Viktor Gyökeres joining Arsenal and just them signing a striker regardless. Now, the desire of the player to join Arsenal is without a doubt the most impressive part, I think, of this whole story in itself. Now, according to a number of outlets in Portugal at the moment, and Fabrizio Romano has also reported this as well, based off the back of those stories. Coming from reliable journalist Bruno Andrade, Sporting and Arsenal are still discussing the details of the deal. The Gunners have offered a fixed amount of around 65 million euros with 15 million euros in variables, but Sporting want more. The long negotiations regarding Gyökeres have intensified again in the past few hours, and with Arsenal in a hurry to complete the entire operation by the end of the week. Despite the progress made, the deal has not been finalised yet, as both clubs, along with the player's agent, are still working on determining the best terms of the agreement, especially the fixed transfer amount. Sporting want 70, Arsenal want to pay 65. So discussions between all parties involved will continue throughout this week. After being allowed to attend training only on Friday, Gyökeres made it clear behind the scenes that he wishes to negotiate with Arsenal, who have a verbal agreement with him for many days. And there has also been reports that he is willing to go as far as potentially taking a pay cut and foregoing part of his salary, according to the record, as much as 2 million euros in order to facilitate negotiations between Arsenal and Sporting. Sporting want a higher upfront fee than Arsenal at the moment are willing to pay. And of course, Gyökeres is willing to try and help that by foregoing part of his potential salary to help this deal happen. He is desperate for this move. He's desperate to prove himself at Arsenal. He's desperate to play for Arsenal. He really wants this. And I think that will have helped in some ways because, as you know, Benjamin Sesko was the preference. And I want to make it very clear because I don't want people going, oh, Sesko, XYZ, whatever, didn't want it, because personal terms, despite all of those reports, which to my knowledge are not exactly accurate around release clauses and high wage demands and there being struggles in that area, it's my knowledge that the personal terms would not have been a problem with Sesko. And the only reason that Arsenal have moved from Sesko to Gyökeres, the priority reason is that Leipzig are not budging on the 90 plus million euro kind of fee that they are looking for. They're not budging on it. And so Arsenal it's been made much easier, I think, for Arteta and for Arsenal and for Andrea Berta to pivot to Gyökeres because, of course, of his own personal desire and hunger to prove himself at Arsenal. Now, I have my doubts. Those doubts are very well documented on the channel. I have doubts whether or not the goals will translate. I have doubts whether or not at this age bracket, a deal of this magnitude and price tag is, if it's too much of a risk. But that's fine. You're allowed to have doubts. You're allowed to have concerns because there's still a lot of quality to appreciate. There's a lot of talent to look at. And so if that can be translated, then yes, Arsenal will be getting a hell of a striker. There's a lot of questions that need to be answered, and he has the ability to answer them. But this is a win now signing. He won't get the time that says, I think there was people asking some questions about how many goals do we have to, I think, was it Carrie-Anne or Claire in the chat box that were asking about how many goals will Gyökeres have to score in his first season in all competitions to be considered a successful signing. I think 25 is what I would be expecting at a minimum. But if it was Sesko, I probably would be expecting 20 because of the age difference between the two and the points of their career that they're at. Gyökeres is in his prime. I'm expecting 25 goals across all comps. If he maintains fitness all season, it's worth bearing in mind. If he gets an injury, then that changes things. But I'm expecting 25 goals. Havertz was on course for 20 last season before his injury. We're looking to bring somebody in that is meant to take that starting role from Havertz. So 25 plus is what my expectation is going to be around Viktor Gyokeres and goals next season. So that is where I'm at on that front with Gyökeres. But it's fantastic to see a player, of course, who is so determined to take on this. Someone's asked, does he take over from Saka on penalties? Maybe. His penalty record is excellent. Saka's penalty record is very good. But his experience, his seniority, maybe that would see him take that role. Maybe that would see him take on. But Saka has held the responsibility for quite some time. Arsenal have got a fair few penalty takers, it's fair to say. So if we get into a penalty shootout, we've got a hell of a lot of players evolved. So that's where we're at. That's the story. That's where we're going. And now we're going to go to the chat box. We're going to go to you guys, you listeners, and take some of your questions in part 2. Let's do it. Okay, this is part 2 of today's show where we take your questions in the chat box. So now is the time to start throwing as many as you can. You can get involved in the show. There is close to 2,700 of you listening right now. Thank you so much to all of you that are listening to today's show. It is greatly appreciated. Just wow. Thank you so much to all of you that are listening. You're absolute legends, all of you. So thank you for tuning in. If you could drop a like on the video, it really would help us out here. We do these shows every single day, 8 a.m. You can listen to them on your way to work, your way to school, wherever you happen to be going at this time of the morning. You can continue to tune in, and I hope you will continue to do so. Of course, we do this not just through the transfer window. We do it through the whole season, whether I'm in Madrid or Paris or wherever I am covering the Gunners. We do this show everywhere. So thank you for all of you for tuning in. Right, let's go to Ilmatu. It says, give him time. No way. He has to bang from the beginning. Absolutely. This is not a deal that you do and then say he has to have a season to adapt. We're signing a 27-year-old. A 27-year-old coming in has to deliver from the off. They have to come in, hit the ground running. I'm expecting that from Zubimendi, by the way, as well. 26-year-old defensive midfielder has won the European Championships, played against England in the final and won. I'm expecting them to hit the ground running. It might take a few games, sure. They have to integrate, but they don't get a free pass for a season. They don't. They have to come in and go straight away. There is no free hit. This has to be a season whereby those signings that we are making give us an immediate bang from the off. Ticking Time Bomb says Gyökeres has given up 2 million euros and his girlfriend. What else could he give up for Arsenal? There was reports that he'd had a split recently. Don't know if it was for Arsenal, though. Maybe she's a Spurs fan. Greenweather says, do clubs insert the minimum game starts in a player's contract? I don't know across all contracts, but certainly in loan deals, there's times where clubs will expect, of course, a minimum number of games. But in terms of a minimum game starts for a player you're signing on a permanent deal, I'd be very surprised if that was the case. But maybe it's not beyond the realms of possibility. But I've never known that to happen for a permanent deal. Certainly for a loan signing, there's sometimes agreements where clubs have to play the player during the spell of that loan over a certain amount of time. So yeah, that's it. Daniel says Aubameyang signed for us at 28. Look what he did, from the off. Exactly. Hasn't played in the Premier League before. Aubameyang came in, started scored on his debut. That's the expectation for Gyökeres as well. Errol says, Tom, when will you do the mask celebration? Wrong emoji, by the way, mate. Come on. The emoji is there. It's ready for you. Let me see if I can put it in the chat box myself. But the emoji for Gyökeres, let's see if I can find it. Here we go. This is it. I need that one. And I need, where we go with the next one. It's the other way. This is really annoying on Mac because you have to search up the emojis. There we go. It's that one. Into the chat. There we go. That's what it is. That's the emojis that you need to be using for Gyökeres if you needed to know that information. But yeah, that's the one. So it's the... but I'm not doing it yet. He's not signed. So not going to be doing that. Ali says, how much is the difference between Arsenal's bid and Sporting's expectation? Well, certainly I think that Arsenal are not very far away from this kind of agreement. You've got about a 5 million or so euro difference is the report. So we're pretty close. And I know fans will be like, well, just pay it. Just pay the 5 million. Why aren't you paying it? You've gone this much. Why don't you pay the extra? If that was the case, and we just kept on paying what clubs want, it ruins your reputation in the market. It really weakens your negotiating position with other clubs. What if 5 million euros is the difference between breaching financial regulations? What if 5 million euros is the difference between Arsenal adding Rodrigo or not getting Rodrigo? These things can happen. So making sure you get players for the right price to give you the best chance of doing other business is really important for us. Harry says, do you think we can finalise the striker signing before the pre-season tour? Maybe not before pre-season training, but certainly before we go away to Asia. That is the hope. That's the hope of Arsenal. That's the aim of Arsenal. It's been the aim of Arsenal since the start of the window. They have wanted to get the centre-forward done before they fly to Asia on their pre-season tour. And with the way in which things have moved, they've got 12 whole days. You think about how quickly things manifested with Norgard, how things quickly emerged with Mosquera. Think how long we've been talking about Gyökeres and Sesko. Things can happen very quickly. Very, very quickly indeed. And Jack says, are you going to be looking forward to the Gyökeres announcement video? Hey, look, this is this potentially is a record-breaking striker signing. I'm expecting big things, very big things for the announcement video, my friend. Yes, of course I am wanting very big things. Ian says Lacazette was 26 when he signed and scored 14 goals in his first season. For me personally, I'm happy to give him a season to adapt, especially since a lot of his goals and pens. That wasn't good enough, by the way. We spent 50 odd million quid on Lacazette. We signed him and he scored 14 goals across all comps. He had a slow start. Now, I think, of course, his time was affected by the fact that 6 months after he signed for the club, we ended up getting Aubameyang. And so there had to be kind of a sharing of the numbers, if you like, between Aubameyang and Lacazette. But for me, we had to have more. So within the time that before January, he scored 7 Premier League goals. He then did suffer a bit of an injury in the second half of the campaign and scored 6. So he didn't score loads of goals in his first season, but his minutes were limited in the second half of the campaign, certainly. But he started pretty much all of the first chunk of games, that we played in. And he didn't hit the ground running. And it didn't really set him off in the right track. He never really... I don't think I'd describe Lacazette as a successful Arsenal signing personally. I don't think he was a successful signing for Arsenal. Aubameyang was a successful signing. Didn't end in the best way, but without a doubt, I think Aubameyang, the goals that he scored, the FA Cup victory that he was so involved in, absolutely Aubameyang goes down as a successful sign. But yeah, it's as simple as that. Let's go to Aji, who says, who else thinks Zubimendi is our lucky boy after he's joined the clubs hours later? You see the lights. I mean, Zubimendi, for me, of course, I've been raving about the guy for a long time. I think a lot of people have been underrating Zubimendi for a considerable period. I think people are fatigued with his name and with his signing. But I think now we can appreciate just how important of a deal it's going to be for Arsenal next season. Jack says, how come Turkish clubs seem to have a lot of money this summer? I think the John Duran one's very interesting. Is he not joining on loan, though, for the season? John Duran. Is he joining? Yeah, he's joining on a year-long loan. It's really weird, that one. I mean, they paid £71 million for the player, and he's now going on loan 6 months later. It's crazy. I don't know if there's any kind of option there, but what's happened there? It's so odd. So we say they've got a lot of money, but they're only getting him on loan. There must be a considerable loan fee, I guess, but still, it's such a strange one, that. It's really, really odd. £60 million loan fee, apparently, that also covers wages, says Kyle. That's a massive loan, fee, of course, but I mean, still, that's huge, isn't it? Absolutely. I don't know what the loan fee Galatasaray paid for Osimhen was. It must have still also been considered around the wages, of course, as well, were also massive. But that's huge money. And the wages will be massive. I'm sure he was unsettled, as that's why he's leaving after such a short period of time. I heard some crazy stories about the commute that he was making just to training was ridiculous, because he lived outside of Saudi because his girlfriend lived outside of Saudi. Saw some stories about that. I don't know how accurate they were, but that was rather interesting. Aoife says, Gyökeres has been back to the hills as a win now option. He has to produce a lot in this season. There's no ifs and buts unless he gets an injury. Hopefully not. I agree with you. Sammy says, do you see Gyökeres and Havertz playing together? Well, that's the thing about Havertz. Havertz gives you that option to play him as a second striker, as a number 10, as a left 8, as a wide player potentially. You've got options with Havertz. He is going to be a really important player for us next season. I don't think people should lose sight of the role that Havertz will play in the team next year. He's going to be a really key player for us. It genuinely wouldn't surprise me if we signed Gyökeres and Havertz still starts at centre-forward in the first game of the Premier League season. That wouldn't be a surprise to me at all. Gyökeres is going to back himself to try and steal that number 9 shirt, And there's, the idea that Gyökeres wants the number 9 shirt as well. If you've not listened to Clive's little clip on the Arsenal Vision podcast, Gabriel Jesus, currently the holder of the number 9. I don't think he's going to get it straight away. But the number 14 shirt is still up for grabs, certainly. And will he ask for the number 14 shirt? I don't know. We will have to wait and see. Who's the last Swede before Gyökeres? Obviously, Ljungberg comes to mind. But have we had a Swedish player between Kallström, of course, Kim Kallström as well? I'm trying to think of the Swedes that have played since Ljungberg. I think it's Kim Kallström is the most recent one. Of course, people saying Anders Limpar. Yes, that was before Ljungberg, but obviously. A lot of you think it's Kim Kallström. Seb Larsson, did he make a senior appearance for Arsenal? I don't know. Certainly would have been before Kallström. He made 3 appearances for Arsenal, to be fair, Seb Larsson. But yeah, I don't think any Swede has played after Kim Kallström has played for Arsenal. Now we're just naming Swedes in the chat box, of course. We're just naming Swedish people now, let alone players. So yeah, there's always the danger with that with chat boxes. AJ, thank you so much for the kind donation. I think Berta joining the club is a breath of fresh air. His negotiation skills are already evident. And also, thanks for turning up daily. It means a lot. No, thank you, AJ, for turning up. It means more to me that you're here than it is for me to turn up for you. But thank you for your listenership and donation. And I certainly think that Andrea Berta's style has helped Arsenal to move swiftly for players in this part of the window. I'm not seeing the same people. Yeah, if you watch a show from maybe a month ago on my channel, and you still go back and watch the show we did on the 1st of June and see what the mood was like on the first day the window opened. Oh, we're so slow. We could have had deals done by now. We should have done this. We should have done that. Before pre-season training starts, we've signed 2 players. We've got a third in Norgard effectively done. We're in advanced talks on 2 more with Mosquera and Gyökeres. We've agreed personal terms with Madueke. The club are very much agreeing kind of the personal side of things with Eze is not considered to be a problem. And there now would be a decision whether or not they activate the release clause. And of course, there's the Rodrigo rumblings in the background as well. A lot's going on. A lot has happened already. We have been quick. We've been swift. And we are ready to pounce if indeed an opportunity emerges. This is shaping up to be a very, 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 very interesting window. But I tell you, please do wait until September to judge. We all have these kind of desires to judge the window now and make a judgment about what it's going to be like now. Now is not the time to judge the window. There's 2 points to judge the window, I think, fairly. One more fairly than the other. The most fair is, of course, when it finishes. Judge what Arsenal have done across the window at that point. And secondly, when that first Premier League game happens, because that's an important point of the transfer window. What you've done up until that point, the players you've signed up until that point are the players that you're starting the season with. So they're the 2 key points for me. Adji says, Tom, why is Norgard not yet arrived? Well, we've just announced Zubimendi. As far as we're aware, all the relevant paperwork has been kind of exchanged at this point. I really do feel as though that we're in a situation where he will be announced very soon. That's certainly the instinct that I've got on this. So this week, it's Monday now, I'd be hopeful of a Norgard announcement this week. I'd feel relatively hopeful of that, especially because they want to get him in before before training, and get him off on this warm weather camp to La Manga, supposedly where we're going. So that's I think the mindset of where we're at right now. Let's go for a few more. Still well over 2,600 of you tuning in. Thank you so much. Do drop a like. Do subscribe. If you're listening on audio, we do this show on audio platforms as well. If you listen on Catcher, you can listen on Spotify and, of course, on Apple too. Leave us a review. Leave us a 5-star if you would be ever so kind. That would be great. Andrew says, in my opinion, key targets should be brought in before the season starts. They should be ready for Man United. I do tend to agree. That's the desire. That's what we'd want to do. But that's what we'd hope for. Bazza says, the bingo. Okay. Bingo card. Yes. Yesterday, if you listened to yesterday's show, we had a TGT Troll bingo card going. And I now need the designers amongst our listenership to well, to get the best kind of bingo card designed. This is just a little, no pressure on this. You don't have to do it, but if you are and have a dab hand at designing things and you want a little bit of a challenge and you want to be our representative for our TGT Troll bingo card that we're going to have on the channel, we've got a lot of different of ones to include. So there's some key ones that I definitely want to include in this. I think obviously we've got quite a lot that I do want to include in this, and I want to highlight some of the ones just right now, which ones I absolutely want to see included in this. So we've got the big ones I want to see included in this. So if you are a dab hand in graphic design and you want to design the Gooner Talk bingo card for our trolls in the chat box, these are the key ones. So make a note of the time on the video, 40 minutes. I think we just hit 40 minutes. So if you rewind, you'll be able to hear all of them. Arteta's lawyer, Arsenal mouthpiece, raise your standards, small club mentality, stop making excuses. And we've got small club mentality on here twice. That's why I like it so much. Afraid to lose your press pass. That's a great one. Arsenal shill, or any, we put that in brackets. We were like, could be anything, football shill, club shill. Just the word shill. It's quite a good word, isn't it? Tourist fans, that's a good one. Tourist fans, the xenophobes in the chat box who like to describe fans from abroad who have arguably just as much, certainly just as much as a passion for Arsenal as anyone else. The tourist fan. The meltdown absolutely needs to be one. And lastly, a personal favourite of mine, what phase are they in? I love that one. What phase are they in? That they could be anyone. Arne Slot could be Aston Villa, Leicester, whoever. PSG. They're our main ones. So those of you amongst us, if you would like to throw in your bingo card designs, send them over to us. Of course, you can find me on Instagram at the Gooner Talk. You can find me on X at the Gooner Talk TV. Nathan says, stop making excuses is definitely my favourite. So there you go. Zubimendi says, tourist fan. Wow, I watch Arsenal matches at 4 a.m. I know. And look, I'm with you, my friend. I absolutely respect the efforts that our fans around the world go to watching games, and the fact that when they come to the Emirates, most of them shout a lot louder than a lot of the season ticket holders that sit around the press box at times, that's for sure. So yeah, I know some fans spend more time telling people to sit down than they do, unfortunately, shouting in support of Arsenal. But that's it. Trust the process, FC. Next season, FC. If you want to throw some extra ones in that you like, but you do so at your own risk, but they got to be good, then get your designs into us. I hope we've got some. There's over 2,500 of you watching, so I'm hoping amongst that 2,500 we've got some people who are a bit of a dab hand with it. Arteta fanboy, quite like that one. It's quite a good one. We might have even had a troll just put one. I think I spotted one more than a wheelchair. Said Arteta fanboys make me laugh. A genuine one of our trolls in the chat. Saying that this morning, but there you go. So that's it. That brings us to the end of today's show. Thank you to the 2,500 of you that are listening. I really do appreciate it. I hope that, of course, more of you will listen back as well. If you could drop a like on the video, subscribe to the channel if you're new around here with those notifications turned on so you never miss a show. We'll be back with you tomorrow morning, bright and early, 8 a.m. for a roundup of all the news that drops today. Who knows? More signings to come. We can keep our fingers crossed that is indeed the case. Stay safe, stay well, stay happy and respectful. And as always, up the Arsenal. The internet held out. Yes, success.